Calling all procrastinators. If you push things off, if you wait to the last minute, if you say, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it later, and then you get stressed out as heck, if that is you and you wonder, why do I keep doing this to myself? Why do I keep procrastinating? I am going to tell you the ridiculously simple reason why you keep procrastinating, and of course, what you can do about it. Stick around. Hey y'all, welcome back. I am Dr. Allison, and in case you don't know me or you're new here, I am a licensed clinical psychologist, and I've made it my life mission to simplify psychology, to break down the science and everything I know as a psychologist to help you live a healthier and more meaningful life. Now, raise your hand. Seriously, I know through the computer screen. Raise your hand if you are a procrastinator. If you push things off, if you wait to the last minute, if you say, I'll do it tomorrow. It's fine. Raise your hand proud. Awareness is the first step toward change. Now, raise your hand if this procrastination has ever gotten you into trouble, if it's caused you stress, if it's kept you up at night, if it's made you be rushing around at the last minute. Okay, go ahead. I see you like shamefully putting your hand up. No shame. Acknowledge that, yeah, that's me. I know there are a lot of raised hands out there because procrastination is such a nasty habit. It is so difficult to break, and so many people struggle with it. And I will totally acknowledge that I am a recovering procrastinator. That's a term I made up, but it is very true. Procrastination is maddening because it gets us into trouble. It stresses us out. We lose sleep over it, but we keep doing it. Right? You probably know I procrastinate. I know it's not helpful. I know it causes me stress, but I keep doing it. Why? Oh my gosh, I'm glad you asked. I'm here to answer that question. If you're a procrastinator, then you know that this habit of waiting and pushing things off is maddening. It causes you so much stress. You lose sleep. You're usually rushing around at the last minute, and yet you can't seem to break this habit. And because you can't seem to break this habit, you think, oh my gosh, it must be, there's all this complex emotional stuff wrapped up in procrastination. It's a really difficult, big thing. I've got to talk it out in therapy. And I'm going to be honest, procrastination is actually super simple. The reason you keep procrastinating is not that complicated. In fact, it's so simple that when we break it down and you understand what I'm about to tell you, it makes the habit so much easier to change. Procrastination is just an avoidance of distress. I'm going to say that again. Procrastination is simply an avoidance of distress. It is you avoiding and trying not to feel uncomfortable. That is it. That is the most boiled down explanation and version of why you keep putting things off. You are trying to avoid distress. Now, I know distress is kind of an odd word that we don't really use every day, but as a psychologist, I actually use that word a lot. And so what I mean by distress, it's sort of a catch-all term for that icky, yucky feeling. You think about sitting down and paying your bills or looking at your finances, and all of a sudden this icky feeling comes up. That's distress. You think about having a difficult conversation with a family member or a friend, and you start to feel anxious and nervous, and this feeling rises up in your chest. That's distress. You think about starting to study for that test or to work on that big project, and all of a sudden you're like, ugh, that feeling, that's distress. The minute you think about doing something you don't want to do or something that's difficult, the natural human response is distress comes up. And I don't know if you can see that motion, but distress, it literally, you can almost feel it rising up in your body. And when that distress comes up, the natural human tendency is to look for the fastest way to make that distress go away. And guess what the fastest way to make it go away is? Yep, you got it. Avoidance. Avoid doing that thing that is bringing up the distress. And that's what your procrastination is. It is an avoidance of distress. So I am a recovering procrastinator. That's a term I made up, but I cannot, anyone who knows me will tell you, can testify about just how chronic my procrastination used to be. And I remember in graduate school this particular experience where I had to write this 30-page paper on my meta theory for psychotherapy. And I did not want to do it. So every time I would think about doing it, it was a big paper, it was hard, it was a huge portion of my grade, my brain couldn't get wrapped around what I was supposed to do. Every time I would think about doing it, distress would come up, right? I could literally feel it rising up. Anxiety, I don't know where to start, it's too hard, it's too difficult. So what was the fastest way to get that anxiety and that distress to go away? Yep, avoid. I'm not going to do the paper. I'll do it later. I'll do this other thing. I'll clean my apartment. Anything but writing the paper. Because as soon as I said, nope, I'll write the paper later, my distress immediately went down. As soon as I avoided doing the thing I didn't want to do, my distress, my anxiety would immediately come down. Now, you might be thinking, well, is that a good thing? Like, don't we want distress to come down? Well, yes and no. In the moment, reducing that distress feels great, right? I don't have to think about that paper anymore. I don't have to feel anxious. I don't have to feel overwhelmed. Whew, I feel great. But the problem is, avoiding distress long term leads to all sorts of negative consequences. We need to experience distress. We need to do things that make us uncomfortable. It's the only reason I was able to graduate, right? It's the only reason I was able to get an A in that class, because eventually, yes, I wrote the paper, but I couldn't have gotten through the class. I couldn't have gotten through graduate school without doing uncomfortable things. So if you keep avoiding distress, if you keep procrastinating, you will feel stuck, you will feel closed in, and your world will feel smaller. Facing distress is how we grow, it's how we change, it's how we learn, it's how we evolve. You've got to do things that make you uncomfortable. Difficult conversations, starting projects, taking initiative at work, facing that fear. You've got to do that. You've got to experience that distress if you are going to move forward and have a life that is meaningful. So right now, I want you to think of something that you're procrastinating about. I'm going to give you a second to think about it, not procrastinate on thinking of something, right? Think of something that you're procrastinating about. Got it? Now, I guarantee, okay, just about guarantee, because I don't know your scenario, but I just about guarantee that if you boil it down, if you break it down, if you're honest with yourself, all that procrastination is an avoidance of distress. Because that thing that you're avoiding doing, every time you think about it, you think about starting it, you think about taking the first step, distress comes up. So you avoid it, and then everything feels better. That's why you're procrastinating. You are avoiding feeling distress. That's it. It's not overcomplicated. It's not all these giant emotional things. You're avoiding distress. You don't want to be uncomfortable. Now, I've got a follow-up video coming in a couple weeks about what you can do to beat procrastination. This is the tip that saved me, that I used, and it is so simple and effective. So watch out for that. However, if you want a sneak peek about what you can do to start to turn this habit around, I encourage you to go and watch my video on anxiety and avoidance. It will give you a sneak peek and a hint into how you can start to beat and break the cycle of procrastination. But for now, when you procrastinate, stop and ask yourself, what distress am I avoiding? What uncomfortable feeling am I trying to get rid of or escape? That is the reason you're procrastinating. So knowing this will make the next step of actually doing something different, it'll make it so much easier. So pay attention this week when you're procrastinating and really think about this as an avoidance of distress. That information and that insight will be so powerful when you take that next step toward no longer waiting, procrastinating, and pushing it off. As always, thank you so much for being here this week with me on my channel. If you want more good stuff like this, more simplified psychology, a couple ways to do that. One, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and really the most important is head over to my website, drallisonanswers.com. There's so much good stuff there that I do not share here on YouTube. So if you're not checking out that site, you are missing out. So don't wait, don't procrastinate, go check it out now, and I'll see you back for a new video really, really soon. Okay, bye-bye.